Welcome to a new fantasy adventure on Dreamscape. What story is waiting for you today? Join stealthy young thief Risha on her risky heist mission that takes a shocking turn. In this gripping fantasy short story full of twists, turns, and betrayals, Risha infiltrates a heavily guarded storehouse with a shady ally. The biggest gesture you can give me is a like. If you like my stories, feel free to leave a subscription and activate the bell so you don't miss any more stories. Well then, let's dive into the story. Betray Thief's Revenge. Noiselessly and lithe as a nocturnal shadow cat, the young pretty thief Risha moved through the narrow, dark alleys and side streets of the huge, ever-wake port city of Baronish. Her assignment tonight was unusually risky, but the prospect of the promised enormous loot was extremely tempting. In one of the well-guarded harbor warehouses on the central pier of the vast docks, a very large shipment of precious gemstones and jewels was currently being stored, which Risha was supposed to stealthily steal on behalf of the Thieves' Guild. The treasures were worth a fortune and would make the guild very rich if the heist succeeded. Cautiously and full of tension, the black-clad young woman now slowly approached the remote warehouse at the end of a deserted jetty. She crept silently and vigilantly in the shadow of the high brick wall, always on the lookout for the canopy from which she could secretly gain access inside. Suddenly Risha felt a heavy hand on her left shoulder, and before she could even make a sound of fright, she whirled around in a flash like a tarantula bite, already raising her sharp dagger in her right hand, ready for a fight.
Shoo! Easy, girl. It's me, Baran.
She heard at the same moment, fortunately, a very familiar deep, somewhat hoarse voice whisper softly into her ear. In the faint light of the crescent moon that had just cleared its way through the clouds, Risha immediately recognized with relief the massive hulking figure and scarred face of her longtime guild partner Baran, who had apparently also crept around this area secretly for the night's gem theft.
You here? What a surprise! So you were assigned for the heist tonight as well, huh? Well then, with both our skills, this should go like clockwork.
Risha whispered confidently. She was immensely relieved not to have to search for a way into the warehouse alone, but in the company of this experienced thief and fighter. Together they could watch each other's backs in an emergency. Baran just nodded. Without a word, the two companions moved from the shadow of the harbor wall over to the poorly lit back entrance of the jewelry warehouse. With their lockpicks and pry bars, the experienced thieves made short work of the massive padlock and were able to quickly open the heavy iron door. Once inside, Risha crept through the warehouse as stealthily as a slick cat, silently moving between the tall pallets and stacks of crates, always searching for the described chest containing the precious gemstones and jewels as loot. It had to be somewhere in this huge container and shelf maze. Suddenly the young woman heard footsteps and the clinking of weapons very close by. At least two guards seemed to be patrolling the aisles between the shelves. In a flash, Risha climbed up a high shelf and hid herself in a narrow niche between the rafters of the warehouse, just in time before the two guards came down the narrow aisle with burning torches. Risha crouched flat on the dusty wooden beam, hardly daring to breathe and suppressing the urgent urge to sneeze from the thick dust with great difficulty. One wrong move now in this predicament and she would be done for. After what felt like an eternity, the suspicious guards finally passed by and Risha could breathe a sigh of relief. As quietly as possible, she then balanced back down to the floor and resumed her search for the chest of jewels. After some time of nervous sneaking around between countless containers, the skilled thief finally found the coveted chest in a dark back corner of the warehouse. Eagerly and greedily she immediately began picking its locks to finally get to the precious gems. Loaded with her valuable loot, Risha was finally able to sneak back out to the pier unnoticed, where her accomplice Baran was already waiting impatiently to get away with her as quickly as possible. The extremely risky nighttime theft tour had surprisingly gone without a hitch so far. Full of pride and joy at their successful heist, Risha and Baran returned to their secret guild hideout shortly before sunrise with the priceless stolen goods to present them to their leader. But there, the young thief was horrified to encounter a very nasty surprise. The unscrupulous guild master now brazenly accused Risha of wanting to keep the valuable jewels for herself, claiming she had not met Baran at the warehouse at all and had stolen everything alone. In that dreadful moment, Risha realized that she had been lured into a rigged trap by her false guild friends. Furious, she swore to herself to come back one day and take bloody revenge on the guild master for this betrayal.